Saturday, September 29th at the Painted Bride Arts Center in Philadelphia, Shruti presented a unique jugalbandhi called Spirit, the Indian Music Experience. The group consisted of Maestro Shashank the Manganiyars and the Manganiyars of Rajasthan, who represent a classical folk tradition. Spirit featured two notable guest artists, Purbayan Chatterjee on the sitar and Patri Satish Kumar on the mridangam. The artists presented a series of workshops the week before the concert to talk about their unique project. The Shruti youth group was lucky enough to be able to interview them.
How did you all come to collaborate on this project?
Anwar Khan, myself and Feroz, we were together in France and Portugal about 3 years ago as part of a festival. And till then we were meeting in common festivals where they performed their music and we were performing our music. And then one day in Portugal when we were playing, at the end we decided impromptu that we just invite Anwar Khan to come on the stage and sing with us. Us meaning Pandit Ushaman Bhatt, myself and Anwar Khan. And then so it began there, and I took that idea forward, and they were very good with Krishna compositions. So, and flute considered, being considered an instrument of Lord Krishna. So there was something in common. And voice and the flute always went together very well. So we decided to come together like that.
How many performances do you have in the States?
States, we have about 9 performances.
Okay.
8 performances.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about the key elements in folk music? So what makes it different than other types of music in terms of melody, music, rhythm, the key elements?
This you need to translate.
Yeah, that would be fine.
जो मुख्य व्यत्यास है आपके और
क्या है? Classical का
अन्य संगीत तो
speak little by little so that he translates.
हमारा पारंपरिक जो लोक संगीत है ये हमारा पीढ़ी दर पीढ़ियों से आ रहा है और हम गाते, मेरा पिताजी गाता था,
generations tradition is coming over generation
being passed on.
और गांव में रहते हैं, डेजर्ट एरिया है और लोक गीत हैं, उसमें बड़े गीत हैं, छोटे गीत हैं, भजन जो शिव जी है, शिवा, कृष्णा, गणेशा, कबीर,
डिवोशनल, सूफी, वेडिंग,
होली, दिवाली,
वो जो क्लासिकल हिंदुस्तानी क्लासिकल है उसको और जो आप गाता है उसमें फर्क क्या है?
उसमें लोक संगीत है और क्लासिकल है, ये तो फर्क बहुत ज़्यादा है। मगर इसमें जो शशांक जी है ये हमारे लोक संगीत को आगे बढ़ाना चाहते हैं। लोक संगीत को इसमें है, चीज़ें हैं लोक संगीत के अंदर है, उसमें ताकत भी है, गुंजाइश भी है, उसमें राग भी है, उसमें ताल भी है, उसमें जो अलग अलग जो वेराइटीज है, मेलोडी भी है, सब उसमें।
कहते हैं कि लोक संगीत एक रूट्स हैं जो कहीं नहीं उसमें चेंज कर सकते हैं।
Yeah.
नहीं चेंज।
It's one system of music that is
a basic level of music where you just cannot change anything.
It's not that you cannot change, but
no, it has never changed.
It has never changed because they have intensely worked.
They still stayed in the same villages over decades, over generations after generation. They never moved. So they could retain the very purest form.
They're a
their music.
very close-knit community that worked hard towards just preserving what they had, and they never ventured so much into different genres of music. Or though their music has travelled around a lot, they never changed, and they never ventured into even becoming very sophisticated. They just wanted to have their music
very
pure,
very focused.
On raga, classical.
Yeah, but
something else.
but I can answer that question a bit more because you asked for the differences. I have been speaking to them for the past 2 days. See, the thing is, they also have the same ragas, same everything same. But you see, the thing is, where it kind of differs from the classical music is classical music has a lot of rule-oriented music. Within boundaries, you're allowed to do. There's a raga has to tread very carefully on its original course. Every raga has its own progression. Every improvisation has a very scientific background to it. A tihai has to be 3 times, or so many things like that. But in their music, it's very traditional. They sing on certain occasions, and they have dedicated repertoire that belongs to that particular occasion. So if it is a childbirth, they cannot sing a wedding song, for instance. So they can sing, but they don't, because they have certain songs that are meant for such occasions, and they don't venture into composing their own. Whereas in classical music, we do a lot of our own compositions. We have a lot of contemporary composers, and a lot of the music, if you see from the past 30 years in classical music, it has gone through a variety of change in the format, in the way things have become shorter. It has kind of, and also a lot sophisticated also. And the cooperation between the North and South Indian classical music forms has gone up so much, so a lot of each other is imbibing a lot. But with that tradition, they have not done such a thing. They have just kept Manganiyar tradition very much to themselves, and they have kept it kind of the way it was 50 years ago, perhaps.
You have performed all over the globe. Do you feel like for different audiences you've had to tailor your performance?
Well, see, I've always said this. People in the West have a very, very keen sense of appreciating a thing. It may be anything for that matter. They are keen observers. So I have had people coming up and talking to me about what they liked in the performance, just about the same way a knowledgeable audience in India was able to appreciate. I mean, if you really look into it, they would have had the same impression, same opinions. But yes, if you ask me whether they understand every note, every movement in a raga, no, they cannot. For that matter, many of our own Indian population themselves cannot speak about intricacies of music. Though they would have heard it and they know how it sounds, but asked to explain, they will not be able to explain.
And mainly when it comes to world music, we tend to compare world music with our music, whereas they never do that. They see world music as world music. They come, listen, enjoy. And
yeah, a lot of times
we tend to compare everything with what we have.
Because many times when we end up in a concert, the sophistication is not as much as we have in our system. These kind of things we end up, these things will be blasphemous in ours, or great if it is introduced. Always there is a comparison between one to the other. But
they won't compare.
Western musicians,
they
just listen to the music
as
for what it is. And that goes to also say that if they listen to 2 Indian performers, one may be very famous, one may be very not so good and not so famous at all. But they have a very open mind to listen to even that and appreciate for whatever is good, they take that. So this does not happen many times with Indian audience because they also know more about our own music, and so then they tend to compare a bit, and many times the comparisons range from artists 50 years ago. So many times it's
Acceptability. The level of acceptability.
I would rather say the Western audience are ones with absolutely no reservations. They just come for the sake of music. Not that Indians do not. I'm never saying that. Indians are probably much more knowledgeable than in Indian music than the Westerners. But due to their education levels and things, they can see the finity of art in another system as well. For instance, today I listen to a jazz musician. I can tell whether he's a musician or of considerable knowledge, and by the way they play their instruments, I can really say whether they're skilled, whether their technique is really good. So we can also observe the intricacies of other art just the way they can do ours. So, overall, the conclusion is they're about the same. Yeah.
So that you're saying for all Indian music, you're not separating, classical or folk or anything.
No.
There. Okay.
Okay.
Folk, I would say, sometimes takes them to another level. You saw that today in the demonstration when he sang. It was a lot, I would say, much more appreciated than the other instruments today because, first of all, the very looks look very ethnic Indian. Two, the voice has been trained so powerfully. It's a fascinating thing to hear somebody so loud and so clear. So, and very peppy numbers with a lot of rhythmic stuff. So, I would say a European audience are taken even more to the folk many times in several areas. And there are tons of folk festivals around the globe which just concentrate on folk. And they invite musicians like them to such folk events which happen in many, many, many countries compared to the classical music sometimes.
Music. So you did before, like with Samilan, with Carnatic and folk music. So can you share some of your experiences from that and some of your experiences doing this collaboration?
Samilan is the same thing.
Right.
Fusion is a very gross term, and a lot of people confuse the term fusion to be typically Indo-Western. And but fusion in its own thing is just fusing two styles, so we can call ours classical folk fusion. It's been a great experience working together, and it is. I wouldn't say we have worked too hard on these projects, because here we were, 5 artists, and 5 meaning I have a sitar player on the team also. He's a very good sitar player, Purba and Chatterjee. So here we get into an impromptu, just conversation in music, with some, along some defined lines, that's it. So from the day one we performed for the President of India. I would say that was our very first performance with him and me, just after Portugal, with Satish playing the mridangam. So it came together so well, I decided that we do it. And I would tell you that we didn't have to put much of effort at all, because I love to blend my music with any genre for that matter. And Satish is also extremely comfortable because he doesn't see his percussion as just mridangam. He sees it as an open canvas to mingle. So I think it was kind of... And they also have immense experience working with a lot of legendary musicians like Zubin Mehta, a lot of musicians from around the world. Pandit Shuman Bhatt, and they've traveled literally all corners of the world, and they've even performed for President Obama also. So they have so coming together and doing something was never a concept that anybody was kind of had any reservations. So it was very easy.
So are there any special techniques you use like this in the workshop? You talked about it when he's ending some note that you'll pick up in the same style.
It is not a technique, it is an understanding. For instance, I have learned Hindustani music for the last 8 years under Pandit Jasraj, the legendary singer. So I know a lot about much of what they sing today is akin to the North Indian classical music in its kind of, if you compare the language of music, it's quite similar. Though the depiction is a bit different, the music and the ragas they use are very similar to the North Indian classical ragas. So, if you say Desh, I know how Desh is performed. And so, what I try to do is, when they end, I try to match those notes, those phrases in their style, and then bring it back to my style kind of seamlessly. This is what you have to work on. They're going to build upon. And that's what we try to do. And believe me, every good artist who is a good performer in his own field is quite effortlessly able to mingle with other musicians without any borders. So, you can compare it to, say, for instance, a scientist from India to...
It's like a language.
It's like a language. A mathematician from India to the US will speak about the same mathematical problems and solutions.
Maybe the dialect and expression may be a little different, but it is the same language.
It's the same language. Only the expression is different.
That concludes our interview.
That would conclude the
Thank
interview.
you.
Thank you so much
very
for
much. That's been
doing
very,
this for us.
बात